might want to look away now because a new report shows the demand for homes has plunged, with buyer inquiries across the country falling by 45% in June. Well, this comes as the Bank of England estimated 1 million homeowners faced a mortgage hike of around 500 quid a month. Well, joining me now is mortgage advisor and broker Sally Mitchell. So, Sally, on the face of it, grim news for homeowners, but no real surprises, I'm guessing, because the price of products is going up so high. People are simply sitting on their hands and not moving houses, right?
Yeah, it does seem to be the sensible course of action, doesn't it? I mean, if you didn't have to, why would you choose to move at the moment unless you can take your existing mortgage with you, which a lot of homeowners can do, port it across to a new property. Interestingly, I know demand generally is down, but actually demand for first-time buyers or from first-time buyers is actually up, and they made up 53% of all inquiries in the last month, which is much higher than it has been. So what I'm seeing with first-time buyers is that they don't know what it's like to have a really good rate because they haven't owned a property before. And the watchword with them is affordability. They're not so much interested in the figures of the rate, 6%, 5%, whatever. They're just saying, well, if I can afford it, if you can prove to me that I can afford it, then I'm off. I'm doing it. I'm getting on that ladder, which is actually quite refreshing.
But surely, though, Sally, what they hit then is a chain supply issue. It's fair and well for first-time buyers to buy unless they're getting new builds. People aren't moving up the chain. So are you seeing stagnation simply blockading the market because people who are at that second home status, they just don't want to move on because it's just so expensive to do so, let alone with stamp duty?
There's certainly a deflated market. The availability is not as great as it was. Obviously, a lot of first-time buyers, they do go for new builds because there are incentives normally as well and shared ownership schemes, etc. But yeah, we're finding with people who are trying to sell that there's not a race to buy their property. They might have to reduce it a little bit. 42% of people who are selling last month reduced their price by 5% to move it along the chain. So everybody's having to take a little, shave a little here, shave a little there. It's definitely a strange market to be in, but there is movement. It's just not as buoyant as it was. And to be fair, we've been seeing this go down since the mini budget in the autumn. It's just a downward trend at the moment.
And also, Sally, a key point here is mortgage rates for buy-to-let landlords have hit a 12-year high, which of course means passing on those costs to renters. And we've seen the average private rents go up by a 5% hike.
Yeah. And of course, because the landlords, non-portfolio landlords, let's say, they simply can't afford to run it as a business or a sideline business. And if they can't pass it on to the renters, their tenants, then they're going to sell and they're going to come out of the market, which means that there is less supply, which means demand goes up, which means rents increase as well. So poor tenants are being hit from all sides, actually.
OK, Sally, also mortgage rates have hit a 15-year high this week, with the average two-year rate now at 6.7%, according to Moneyfacts. But I want to try and keep things positive before we get too doom and gloom here. What would you say to property owners out there? Is this a short-term blip? A lot of people watching the show, GB News Today, will remember the 1980s, will remember soaring interest rates. It seems that inflation is being taken back under control, and you'd hope, being an optimist and being a realist, that this is a storm and things will get better.
Yes, we have to believe that they will. These things are cyclical. We just seem to be in a prolonged slump or high, whichever way you look at it. We have the inflation figures coming out on Wednesday, the 19th. Hopefully that will be good news and we'll see a reduction from the 8.7% that we had last time. That could mean that when the Bank of England meets on the next policy committee, then they might not put the rate up from 5%. Experts say it should top out at 6% in any case at the moment. There's a potentially worry that there'll be an overcorrection, that we're going too fast for these higher Bank of England rates, and that could cause a recession. So it really is it's a fine tune. I'm hoping that inflation will be good on Wednesday, and that will slow any increase on the base rate and just give us a little bit of a chance to breathe, and homeowners a chance to breathe and accept this new sort of level of rates, which unfortunately aren't going anywhere, but we certainly don't want to see them increase any further.
Sally, I think people out there would echo that sentiment. There's a feeling that normally inflation is caused by people overspending, by splurging, by being reckless. People aren't doing that this time around, are they? They're spending through necessity. Inflation is going up because everything we buy, from food to clothing to motor cars to our central heating, everything costs more. Do you think now that interest rates have just become a blunt tool and they're battering people over their heads?
Well, it all really comes back to inflation, and a very, very clever economist explained to me the other day about inflation, and he's been a chief economist for 30 years, and he said he still doesn't really understand how it happens, how it comes about. It's a mixture of science and art, and the biggest threat to inflation apparently is us, the general public. You can't control how people spend unless you make it extremely painful for them to do so. And that's what they're attempting to do, making it difficult to spend money, making it hurt. If it's not hurting, it's not working, we've heard in the last few months. But certainly they seem to think that, and I'm not an expert, that inflation is the key to everything, and that is something that they just have to get under control, which means that we're faced with these interest rates.
OK, Sally Mitchell, thank you for joining us this afternoon on GB News Saturday. And if only the Bank of England hadn't printed about 900 billion quid during lockdowns, which sent inflation spiralling. Anyway, what do I know? Let's move on now.